Hey guys, listen, I want to quickly talk about a conversation I had with a friend a few days ago, and we were talking about our standards versus our preferences and how it's important to know the difference between the two as it relates to dating. And normally, when you're just casually dating, your standards and your preferences aren't really a priority. You're basically there just to enjoy a good meal, great conversation, and a drink. But when you're dating with a purpose and you're in search of that life partner or that soulmate, then our standards and preferences does come into play. And we got to remember this. Listen, the root word to preference is prefer. So our preferences are those qualities that we prefer the other person to have, but they don't necessarily have to have them. Those qualities are important, but they're not what I would call a deal breaker. But with our standards, it's the exact opposite. Our standards are those qualities that the other person must possess. There's no room for compromise. Those qualities are what I would call a deal breaker. And one thing I've learned is that as we get older, our standards begin to change. Our standards we tend to raise our standards as we get older, or as we go through life experiences. Those experiences in life will cause us to raise our standards. So that's a quick summary of what the difference I believe between preferences and standards. Preferences. Speaking to a lot of people, male and females, I found out that sometimes our preferences tends to outweigh our standards. And to me, that's backwards. But let me quickly give you some examples of preferences I hear quite often from people. It's not uncommon for me to hear people say that, hey, I want the other person to have a perfect credit score in the upper 700s or 800s, or that other person has got to make six figures or be a homeowner. But are we really going to deny somebody a second or third date because we find out that their credit score is in the low 700s as opposed to upper 700s? Are we really going to deny somebody a second date because we find out that they live in a nice apartment, rather a nice house? Or we find out that they make $65,000 a year as opposed to $100,000? Let's go a little bit further. It's not uncommon for me to hear people say, I don't want to date anybody that has kids, or they can have no more than just one child, or if the other person does have a child or children, there can't be no more than just one baby mother or one baby father. In the looks department, it's not uncommon to hear guys tell me, hey Sam, listen, I want a woman with a real nice body. We're looking for a certain physique. Normally we want a woman with a real nice body, nice butt, nice set of breasts, because as men, we do tend to judge women sometimes by their physical attributes. But it's really no different than the women. Listen, women tend to tell me all the time that they're looking for a man to be taller than them. He can't be my height or shorter. I hear that all the time. I hear women say that they're looking for men with a lot of muscles. He got to constantly be in the gym. The new trend now, I believe, are the full beards. Women are going crazy over men who have these full beards. So women tend to judge men also by their physical attributes. But again, it's important that we don't cause our preferences to outweigh our standards. Standards are those qualities that someone must possess. Again, there's no room for compromise. You have to have these qualities. And these are a few standards I hear across the board from both males and females. No, we tend to want somebody, hey, listen, you have to have a job. And not only do you have to have a job, but you have to make enough money to support your own household. You have to have your own house or townhouse, apartment, condo, whatever the case may be. We want somebody to have their own place. We want somebody to have their own vehicle. That's a must. You got to be able to get around without relying on me or the other person to get you around. We want somebody to be big on family. Or it's not uncommon for me to hear ladies tell me that, Sam, I don't care how good looking a man may be or how much money he makes. If he's not active in his child or children's life, then it's a no-go for me. It's not uncommon for me to hear people say, hey, listen, the other person has got to be respectful and they got to be honest. We want somebody who believes in God in some capacity. They don't got to attend church every Sunday, but at least in some capacity believe in the Creator. We want somebody that's literate. You got to be able to read and write, or we want somebody with good hygiene. You got to have, decent smelling breath most of the time, or, not walk around with an odor. So these are standards I hear across the board for both males and females. But again, listen, the important thing, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is that our preferences must never outweigh our standards. Our standards should always be our top priority, and beneath our standards, then we can prioritize our preferences. Rule number 1, never allow loneliness to cause you to compromise on your standards. It's easy to compromise or feel pressure to compromise when you're walking into your house and there's nobody there but you, and complete silence. Or you wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and you look to your left and to your right and there's nothing there but pillows. We have to make sure that we don't allow loneliness to push us to compromise. But having said that, is rule number 2. From time to time, reevaluate your standards. Ask yourself, am I grading too high in this area? Or am I expecting too much from the other person in that area? So always reevaluate your standards. And rule number 3, always make sure that you can meet your own standards. And I'm going to speak briefly about that on another video called Unfair Standards. But listen, don't set standards for other people that you cannot meet. To me, that's been a hypocrite. You're walking in hypocrisy. So again, the 3 rules are: number 1, don't allow loneliness to cause you to compromise. Number 2, always make sure that from time to time you reevaluate your standards. And number 3, make sure that you can meet your own standards. I hope this video was a blessing. Please like it, share it, and I'll be sure to post more videos in the future.